So it's really like going into this open sea where philosophy and all that humanity has done for it suddenly stops being something theoretical and in history, but something absolutely critical for me.
So welcome everyone. We are the Secular Society of MIT. For those who haven't been to one of our events before, we are the home of secularism, a home for non-believers, a community for people who have left religion, questioning religion at MIT, and we're affiliated with SSA and CFI. Today's event is part of our series called Out and Out. As you can see, we have quite a portfolio in different religious traditions, because the idea is that coming out of each religion has its own set of experiences. Every person has a different story. Every person coming out of a different religion has a different story. So we want to know all of those stories and share them, and find a community in both our similarities in our shared journey, as well as the differences in our journey, in our individual journeys. So our speaker today is Oscar. Oscar was born in Guatemala to a middle-class Mormon family. He immigrated with his family to the United States at the age of 15. A year into college, he returned to Guatemala to be a Mormon missionary, preaching and even successfully converting people to the Mormon faith for 2 years. After returning to the United States, he received an undergraduate degree in finance from the University of Texas, followed by a master's degree in mathematical finance from BU. He currently works in investment management technology development. He met his wife, Vanessa, while living in Texas. They married in a Mormon temple ceremony. Following a deeper critical examination of the religion starting in 2015, both left the church. Oscar now identifies as an atheist and enjoys being involved in this community, helping people through their transition from religion. Please welcome Oscar.
Thank you so much. Thank you all. This is really fantastic for me to be able to address you guys, and it seems like the end of like a really big journey, but at the same time, like at least for me personally, a landmark and maybe the beginning of something new. So hopefully there'll be something here for everyone of you guys to take. Either you come from a religious background, maybe yourself have also left or are experiencing a crisis of faith, or maybe are currently a believer in your faith and have continued that tradition, or maybe acquired a tradition. We'll see, and I'm actually really, really eager to hear your feedback later, questions. I can't even wait to get to that part. We'll actually have to speed it up a little bit, but hopefully we'll get to the meaty part. And what else was I going to say? I will be addressing mostly the experience of being in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But for brevity, I will just call it the Mormon Church, even though I don't necessarily like it to be called like that. So let's see, the story. The story begins in this quaint little town in Guatemala called Antigua. I was born there. It's super picturesque. You should go visit. And with this cute little family, I'm the one in the middle there. Aww. Great, I was really expecting that. Get some empathy towards the speaker. This was actually a picture in Louisiana. My dad was in university at the time and scholarship sponsored by the government. So I learned English and Spanish at the same time. And what I would describe that is that I don't have a primary language. I have both secondary languages and I suck at both. Also, I've been feeling a little bit sick in the past few days. So we'll see how long my voice will carry. But I have some help here, so we'll see. So when I was born into that family, they were Mormon. My dad converted when he was a child, back in the 60s when the Mormon Church started sending missionaries into this little country in Central America. My mother converted to Mormonism from a deep Catholic background when they were married. And that's just all that I knew growing up. As you might expect, there aren't a ton of Mormons in Guatemala, so already my experience growing up was being in the minority, even though I was, in that country where I kind of looked like everyone else. And other than that, my experience growing up was very normal, happy. I didn't think at least to me, it didn't feel like it really affected me and my family in a very different way. So very healthy. And then, we immigrated to the United States when I was a young teenager. And that's when I really started to really think more deeply as to what I wanted to do with my life, what is this religion that I'm following together with my family. And I actually read the book. So I know it would be much better if it was a musical, but no, that's the book, right? So I did read the book, and at the end of the book, towards the end, there's a very famous passage taught, to all Mormons, good and bad, very that you should ask God if the Book of Mormon is true. So what it says, it's kind of fuzzy, but it says, and when this is in the Book of Moroni, chapter 10, verse 4 and 5, and when you shall receive these things, being the book, I would exhort you that ye ask God, the eternal Father, in the name of Christ, if these things are not true. And if you shall ask with a sincere heart, with real intent, having faith in Christ, he will manifest the truth of it unto you by the power of the Holy Ghost. And by the power of the Holy Ghost, you may know the truth of all things. Isn't that incredible? Not just that, but of all things. So I was 16 when I read this. I had just finished reading the book. I knelt down in my bedroom. I crossed my arms and closed my eyes and prayed. And did that and then directly asked, Heavenly Father, is the Book of Mormon true? And I was so excited, I guess I even asked the following question I asked, is the church true? And immediately, I had my eyes closed, but I think I felt like I saw light, like it was coming from inside me. At the same time, I was feeling emotions of reassurance and peace, which is exactly what they in the church teach you to feel. So I was like, wow, I did the thing that they asked, I felt what they said I would feel, and I received a spiritual witness of truth, that Book of Mormon is true, and the church is true, and this is great, and I can go on and actually really live my faith 100%. at the same time, I was in a dual enrollment program and taking college classes and learning about science. I was always been very drawn to just asking questions, asking why, and obviously science is one of the ways that you would address that. My degree is in mathematics, big surprise, right? Like that's what I was interested in also since my teenage years. And I came across learning something that kind of threw everything upside down. Surprise, surprise, it was evolution. And to me, it was actually very easy to just very quickly grasp that the claims surrounding evolution and the science of it are really incontrovertible. Like, even though I was very secure in my religion, I at the same time I could just not deny the science and the facts around evolution, and in particularly what was very conflicting with the worldview that I had being a Mormon was where life stood in the middle of all of this. There seemed to be like a very direct implication by science that there's no soul. Life itself may not begin at a specific time, may not end at a specific time. Like, life maybe just emerges, or human life as we recognize it emerges, and then it also withers away and is destroyed, and there's no afterlife. So, that obviously put me into a very deep pattern of thinking. And it was like for some time. This is a tree in my backyard at the time. I would just kind of stare at it and look up and think of the majesty of nature and the beauty of it all, the beauty of the truth that came through science and mathematics and logic and philosophy that I was also studying at the time. And at the same time thinking of creation by God and how God, in a way, gave purpose and meaning and meaning to me. But I really did struggle, and it seemed that there was no way to kind of square it all. It was very kind of obvious to me, like either like science is right, or and there's no purpose to life, or they're wrong, and then God is providing this meaning and providing creation and me and the life and everything that I see that is good and wonderful. And so I stood at this kind of edge between where I was, everything that I knew as a Mormon with my family, and the void, just nothing, and darkness, meaning like if I did step out of what I knew as a Mormon, there was really nothing else for me to go to. Not just that, but also part of that darkness and void and nothingness was the nothingness of that leaving religion would cause on me, which is to then realize that life, had no purpose, no meaning. There was no life after death, and like why would I be here? So, at that point, it was a critical moment, and I just could not bring myself to accept what I had logically already concluded. And so I took a step back, and I prayed a lot, but it was mostly to just grasp for, again, those spiritual experiences. And some way or another, I think maybe I just got distracted and went on with my life and did like all good Mormons did, and went and served a mission, preaching of the goodness of the good news. So I left Guatemala, actually. That's where I went to my mission as well. Oops. That's my dad just saying goodbye at the airport. We were really awkward. That really sums up my relationship with my dad. Like we're not even like hugging, right? Like, I never quite understood him, and like he never really opened up to me, except maybe one time we had like a really heart-to-heart conversation. At that time, however, in his life, I am absolutely sure he didn't believe in Mormonism anymore. Because we asked him to give us his testimony as a good Christian, and he just kind of evaded the question. But he didn't really have the heart to tell us, and he wasn't really the type of person to really open up. He grew up in the military, and that was his career, and he would never show any weakness or emotion, or let us show any emotion either. But I did wish that he could have told me, you know, what, that he had figured out maybe, right? And to give me the courage to pursue what was right. That was actually the last time that I saw him. A few months later, he passed away. He had been sick for some time, but we thought he was going to recover, but he didn't. So that was one of the regrets, that like I didn't really have that. I never really did have that relationship with him, and I think we maybe could have helped each other out. As missionaries, I would tell you, most of the time we're just goofing off. I think this is an apocalypse. I'm sorry, Revelations in Apocalypse. It says, "Look, I am calling at the door. Someone hears me and opens the door. I will come in and dine." Something like that, I think is the translation of King James Version. I really am kind of ashamed of my time, because like it really didn't do anything. Like we just wasted years. They're really, I mean, Mormon missionaries, they're not threatening at all. Like, and now they're much younger. I was 19, 20. Now they're 18. So they're just mostly goofing off. Every now and then we did come across people that listened and went to church and got baptized. This is a really sweet old man. We call him abuelito, or grandpa. I'm dressed in white because I did perform the baptism in the building. And again, I mean, I feel just kind of ashamed and silly, because like, you know, you can say he's well into his years, and he had to give up smoking. Probably, I don't know if it was too late. Maybe it was a good idea. But he also had to give up coffee. We made him give up coffee. Like the one, you know, among the few things that gave him pleasure, right? Like we made him give that up. But you know, this is the real reason why he did it. His family, they were all already in the church. And there's this very deep doctrine in the church that there's a promise that you will see your family in the afterlife, but only if you join the church. And if you join, you are sealed with your family, and you're all in heaven. But if he didn't get baptized and get sealed with his family, he will be left out, literally. And it's one of those things that like are so deliberate as far as keeping obeying a certain rule or law that really manipulate people into doing such things like getting baptized. I mean, maybe you don't believe, but you want to do that, or staying. Here's another family that got baptized. They were pretty young children, and the lady in the middle is looking down. She had not made up her mind yet about getting baptized. She was the smart one, and the mother could not get baptized. She really wanted it desperately, but she was not married to the man that she was living with. The father of children.
He can.
I'm sorry?
He could get baptized without being married.
Oh, no, he couldn't get, neither he could get baptized. So, it was, totally outside of her control. And this is like extremely common. There are many cases where partners had previous marriages and they just could not get the divorce for whatever reason, and they just could not get baptized because of that. While cohabitating, because it's living under sin. And that's another example, right? Like, now that I look back on it, it's establishing morality or goodness by lawfulness. So if you obey certain rules or laws, then you're good. And if you're not, then you're not. And you're not good. Eventually I came back, I finished the mission. It was a waste of time. I came back to the United States. And life kind of descended into the mundane. I went to school. I also want to, mention that throughout this whole time, with my family as well, we had immigrated to the United States, but we were not legal in the United States. So I was an illegal immigrant since I was 15 or so, with all my other siblings as well. So that's yet another cloud that kind of always put me kind of in the minority, and I never really felt legitimate anything. Like, I didn't feel like a legitimate Christian, a legitimate Guatemalan, a legitimate United States person. And in a way, I'm still kind of overcoming them. But life moved on. I met this wonderful lady, Vanessa. She's trying to hide here. We won't be able to hide for very long. This is actually a picture of our first dates. I don't know why she's wearing glasses, because we're in inside stadium at a rodeo in East Texas. Huh?
They were yours.
You took them.
Because you knew, he put you on a slideshow.
The many details, but then we ended up getting married. That was very fast, right? First date, getting married. But this was actually not, we were actually not getting married at this point. We had already been married in a ceremony that's super secret, in a very small room, which was a few people in a building called the Temple. And this is the Mormon Temple in Houston.
Most of the family couldn't be there.
Yes. So that's what we did the other ceremony, so that our family, who were not members of the church, could participate, because they could not go in to see us get married for real. And in fact, you did not get married in this dress either. So. Something else you don't see right behind this happy face is that the night before, when we were going through another super secret ceremony, I had already gone through it as a missionary, but Vanessa had not. And you can just Google it, temple ceremonies. There's a bunch of these sacred rituals, they do sacred handshakes, and you learn about Adam and Eve and how it kind of ties back to, I was going to say,
Original sin?
well, yes, the original sin, but I was going to say, you wouldn't expect this.
Temptation.
Temptation. I'm sorry.
Masonry?
Masonry.
Yes.
Yes. Sorry, you didn't expect it.
Yeah.
Maybe I need more caffeine. And it completely shocked my fiance, right? In tears, we were talking about it afterwards. She was telling me she didn't know if she could go through with it. She didn't know that she could be a good woman wife to me. And gave me an out if I wanted to call it off, actually. I didn't. We got married.
Yay.
But we did struggle for years after to figure that out, where the church kind of fit into our lives. And then we came across this very important document called the CES letter, and I'm giving credit to the author here. The background is that this gentleman was having questions about the Mormon Church and compiled a bunch of research that he had done, sent this letter to the head of the church education system. That's what CES stands for. And since then has become one of the main points where Mormons come and really actually understand a lot of the historical truths behind the church.
Can you read the small print under the title?
Yes, it says my search for answers to my Mormon doubts. Very quickly, and if Vanessa feels like it, she can tell her side of it, but she had come to find out on her own, without me, without my help, that she was basically done with the church. She told me so, and that was it. And at the time, I understood the doubts. I understood how difficult it could be. At the same time, in my head, I was thinking, I knew it. Like, I knew this was going to happen. Or what did I do wrong? Like this must have been my fault. But then I started also researching my own. And the watershed moment really happened when what I started to learn about the church didn't come just from the church. It came from the broader body of work that exists in the world. And I learned unquestionable facts. And immediately I realized I can't defend this anymore, and I'm out. Please.
I just wanted to clarify one point real quick. And going back to the verse that he shared at the beginning, there's this very intense pressure within the church that if you are righteous, you feel the Spirit, and if you feel the Spirit, the church is true. So you don't question and you don't have doubts, and you don't admit to those doubts because you're admitting to being unrighteous. And so, even to your spouse, this is not something you share if you're having questions. And it's not, there's a lot of guilt that goes into that, and into looking anywhere outside of the church for any kind of answers to questions you might have. So I just want to kind of clarify that, because some of that what he's saying in perspective.
Thank you. I also do want to mention that Vanessa was going to participate. We were going to do this together, but she was busy and we were not able to plan it. But I don't know how to say it like without evidence, but I'm not into the patriarchy here. Like this is not about the guy being the one doing the thing and the woman being on the side. That is absolutely not the case. In fact, I am submitting my citizenship application this week, and I am changing my last name, and I'm actually taking her last name, so we're switching last names. So. And I am also kind of ashamed that it took so long for me to come to leaving the church. Because, you know, for so long I had valued critical thinking, and I applied it when buying a car. I did research, I Googled it, and I compared. I had my spreadsheet, and I didn't just take it from the car salesman, right? Like I looked at alternate sources, and then made my decision. That's not something that I did with Mormonism until at that point. And I realized that I was giving this very important decision about what I believed in, and really that pervaded my whole decision process, too much of benefit of a doubt. And in fact, it was at a different level, at a different bar, way lower bar to accept all the claims of Mormonism. And when I subjected my questions about religion to the bar that I subjected everything else, which was just to be fair, there was actually no way to justify my beliefs or the claims of the church. And you didn't have to go very far. Like, I actually just read like the first page, or the first 2 pages of the CS letter, which is actually a really long document. And it only went into the true history of the Book of Mormon and how it originated from multiple parts at different times. There's really no way that it could fit the claims that the church has about it. And that was it for me. So I went from one day believing to the next day I didn't. But I found myself again at this point. And I'll also mention one thing very quickly, that there was a time, you know, not many years ago, that I would have, in this audience, I would have tried to justify very rigorously and logically, you know, why I left and why I think I was right to leave, and why people who are Mormon should really look into it, and they might do better by leaving as well. But I don't feel like I have to do that. I don't have to justify the decision to me anymore. And in fact, I think people don't have to necessarily have a reason to change, or to leave a tradition, or to leave what their parents did. This is, you know, really more important for me. You know, once kind of I'm out, what now? Right. So that's the prompt, and it was very difficult. I I went into bouts of depression. There were times that I thought I really knew what I was doing, other times I didn't know what I was doing. Even like the most fundamental question, like why should I get up in the morning? It was difficult to answer because I didn't have God and the commandments and the plan to follow that would tell me this is why you should get up and do these things. So it's really like going into this open sea where philosophy and all that humanity has done for it suddenly stops being something theoretical and in history, but something absolutely critical for me that I needed. And to be honest, like I'm still in the process of articulating what it is that I do, what I do. And I think people can approach it in different ways as well. I started with just by principle, throwing away all my assumptions, throwing away all the cultural, social norms that I was brought up under. And I mean, I meant it literally, like I threw out everything. One of the consequences of that is that I wasn't necessarily thinking of bringing this up, but I started questioning why I felt frustrated with my male friends. And I realized that I wanted to express my affection in ways that were not socially acceptable. And eventually I understood through the help of other people who also saw that in me that I could have identified as bisexual. And I identify like that today. And like that, and that's just an example of how I felt that I had handcuffs in my mind, and I was not able to think beyond a certain boundary. And having left Mormonism, religion, and even God behind, I was able to step out of those bounds. So I find myself now trying to leap. And one of the keys that I found lately is I'm not alone in all of this process. And what I found that has brought a lot of meaning to my life was acknowledging other people. And we may be in similar experience, or that we experience things differently as well. And that's why I get up every day in the morning is for other people, for experiencing that wonder of of another human life that I acknowledge and they acknowledge me. And it is that wonder that we have yet to explain, but is what's providing value to my life. So I think I'll stop mine now and we'll get your questions.
Part I found really interesting, and one of the slides I found really effective was when you were standing in the doorway at 2 points in your life. And I think that a lot of people who are brought up in a particular cultural tradition, whether it be religious or a particular political background or whatever, come to this point where their traditional beliefs that they've been brought up with are in balance with their questions about that heritage, or their doubts about it, or their evidence against it. And a lot of times, maybe more often than not, people tend to take the escape from that cognitive dissonance by just counting on the people around them, their family that brought them up in this tradition, as like, these people must know what's in my best interest, they must know what's right. So I'm going to cast aside the questions and the contra, the evidence countering that position, and just take comfort in just having faith in whatever it is that I have as a baseline. What do you think it is that gives people like yourself the willingness or the ability to keep questioning and step through that door into effectively the unknown?
I don't know. I mean, I think I had the support of my lovely wife, because she had stepped through it as well. I mean, I was just, what?
I was first.
You were first, yes. And I mean, I'm serious. I was there when I was a teenager. I stepped back. I didn't have the courage. And I was actually, pretty late in my 20s when I did eventually leave. So I think that's one of the most difficult aspects that maybe it's not often acknowledged about leaving a religion, is that you're leaving something that is like your entire world. In fact, I didn't really strongly identify, like my identity was not super tied to like being Hispanic or really anything else. It was very strongly tied to being Mormon. So leaving leaving church, it was like leaving a huge part of my identity. Not only that, but leaving like the framework of how I did everything to nothing. So if we can figure it out, what would take to have that courage to step out, I would love to know. But I think support is a huge part of it.
Just hearing you say that reminds me of my own experience when I was in Catholic school, and not really stepping outside of that until there was another classmate who basically raised their hand and also said, hey, this doesn't make sense to me either. So hearing you say that support in order to actually step into the unknown is so valuable. I'm just curious, because I met Vanessa and yourself obviously before. Was there anyone else in your life, like how did your family actually react in the end?
I'm glad you asked that. So I had been out of the church for about a year and not told my family. My mother was going through some health challenges. She was actually starting to suffer onsets of dementia, and she was coming to visit me as well. So I had to do something to tell my family, to tell my mom. What I settled on was to write them an email. Because I could lay everything down line by line, and they could read it at once and dwell on it, and then get back to me. So it was actually a great response. In a way, I really shocked my sister. She didn't even know what to say, but she accepted that. At least she thought that what I was doing with the right mind. I was very explicit, like, I'm not doing this because I messed up and I don't want to repent. I didn't do this because someone pissed me off at church. I didn't do this because I don't like the church leader. And those are all valid reasons. That just wasn't me. Like I was very explicit as well. I left for the same reason that I had, if I had joined, I would have done that. But so the reason I went on a mission is because I thought this was true. And now I don't know, now I know this is not true. And so, I'm out. But Vanessa's experience with her family was very different. I can very quickly summarize it unless you would like to share.
So I got disowned. My anybody. I came to I say that you can be Mormon if you believe the doctrine or if you fit it culturally. The Mormonism is in some ways a lot like Judaism. It's a culture, it's a lifestyle, it's a religion. What you eat, what you drink, what you wear, who you marry, who you socialize with, you're at church 2 to 3 nights a week at minimum. This is a massive part of your life. And I was never a great fit culturally, and I tried very hard doctrinally. And so for me, it was a process of a couple of years of just trying to feel okay with the decision I'd already made, and fearing backlash that ended up being valid. But what was very helpful for me was actually Reddit. There's a very large, very active ex-Mormon community, and when I started down the rabbit hole, I'd been asked to teach the young women ages 12 to 18, and I was acting as a Sunday school teacher for them, and asked to teach them things that I did not necessarily believe in culturally, such as your role as a woman to be at home and have up the baby, and not your job to go to school. These are kind of things that you're asked to perpetuate. And I remember stumbling onto the ex-Mormon Reddit and just spending hours. I totally just ghosted a friend I was supposed to be meeting. I was freaking out, and then I came home and I was like, I think I'm done. The next day we had church. I taught the lesson and I was in the bishop and I was like, you should probably find someone else to teach because I'm not coming back. And I called my family lawyer that weekend, so everything just kind of imploded all at once. And worth it. But for most leading Mormonism, there are not communities in place if your entire community is Mormon. So online communities tend to be very, very helpful in that case. That was a very long-winded answer to that, sorry.
I would love to follow up on that. I didn't think that was rambling at all. I thought that was great. Have you must have siblings?
Yeah, I'm the second oldest of 5.
Okay. So, do any of your siblings talk to you?
My 2 youngest siblings still live at home, and my mother has limited contact with them. So I get a couple of messages a year when they sneak out the phone. My older sister, my mom's speaking friends with, she's still in the church. And then my little sister has left the church as well, and she actually went on a trip to Colombia with me recently. It's mixed.
Yeah, so how does your older sister, who's still in the church, how does she reconcile talking to you, you know?
So here's the thing, the Mormon church does not advocate shunning. This is very much a Russian roulette of the parenting wheel. So my sister, it's not really an issue for her. She's not the most devout of Mormons herself, so that probably helps a little bit.
Yes, sir.
Both of you in various ways have alluded to, especially you, going from a world of belief and into nothingness. And that's it is a formidable transition. In looking back, perhaps, more than anything else, are there parts of you that you feel are the way they are, being sort of Mormon in a small M sense? Which is to say that you're not a Mormon in the capital M sense, you don't believe the doctrine and so forth, but there are things that you're glad, or even if you're not glad about them, you are part of you now that have arisen from that experience of being part of that doctrine. So there was a parallel made with Judaism, and many Jews call themselves cultural Jews. They don't go to the temple and that stuff, but they do things that sort of in a vague sense identify them as Jewish in a small J sense. Is there a part of you that is, here's a banal example perhaps.
Everybody gets a casserole.
Or you love children. I mean, that could happen in lots of ways, but are there parts of you that you now feel, and it could be a little bit of a way of filling some of the wound of that gap by saying, well, I'm out of that whole belief system, but I experienced something that I took away from it, even though it's out of its original context.
Yeah, absolutely. So first I would say there's definitely a lot of value in a lot of things that are in the Mormon doctrine or church or culture. So you don't have to necessarily reject 100%. Like, I by principle wanted to just start with a clean slate and then kind of acquire back. But even then, there were things that are now part of me that are very valuable, such as this. I was raised through my family and through the church to almost at fault think about what is true and what is not true. So that was number one linchpin to me. So that's what ended up getting me out eventually. But having that notion of chasing after the truth is something that I value immensely, that I got from the church doctrine.
The Mormon Church does a very good job of teaching you how to poke holes in everybody else's religion. So I would argue that a lot of people who leave Mormonism end up atheists, because once you leave Mormonism, you know where else to go.
Ex-Mormon, also atheist. That's what I was going to ask you about, is something similar to Vanessa was talking about, like this void you're talking. Like I know about half of myself, I'm from Utah. I've lived there a long time, I worked for Harvard. About half of my family, and well, more than half of my family, and half of my extended family have left. And these are Utah Mormons. Granted, liberal Utah Mormons, but like over half of pioneer stock families, more and more Mormons are leaving. And it goes straight from Mormonism to atheism. It's like this void. It's really actually, I know a few that have found comfort in other religions, but more often it's I'd say the majority of ex-Mormons that I know are atheists.
I think it's also very, very hard not to feel a little bitter and jaded coming out of the church. And I feel like we've both come to a point where we're moving past that. But the church asks a lot. And so when you leave it, there's this, I gave everything to this, and it was all a lie. And so I think you're very reluctant to immediately jump into something else because you have a healthy sense of skepticism. Going back to what you had asked about things we take with us, I know for me, like with the Mormon community being as insular as it is, there's a very real sense of circling the wagons when someone is in trouble. Mm-hmm. So I definitely carried that with me in a sense of like, you are sick if you were having a baby, if there's a funeral, you were getting food. Like there's a real sense of it doesn't really matter if you're busy, if someone needs something, you can drop it and you go, and I think that's beautiful. And I've tried to carry that into current communities.
The sense of community was one of the things I missed the most. And in fact, what I've been working on, recently and really struggling times is building that community again, finding my community.
What is your community now? Can you describe that?
Do you want to raise your hands?
You guys.
I think there was someone waiting back over there. Someone waiting for a while.
Yeah.
No, we've been blessed to slowly but surely start to build a really great group of friends here.
Sorry, there were some questions.
Someone.
Over here. No. Hello.
I'm really glad you brought your sexuality because I spent most of your talk to figure out how to phrase my question that didn't implicitly argue. So thank you for making my job easier. So having left Mormonism myself, a lot of the experience that I experienced and a lot of other women I've talked to that have left Mormonism, their story of leaving is often about gender and socialization and then encountering oppression through patriarchy and like really questioning that. Like the way that you talked about the culture of Mormonism, she was nonviolent by yourself, like that resonates a lot, and I think that there's kind of a gender component to that. So it's fascinating to me to hear the story of someone who was socialized as through, like, regardless of who you identify now, your socialization in Mormonism is very cis-male. And I'm wondering, like, you started this evening talking about Russian evolution and science and truth, and so, like, was there a piece there around questioning, like, the gender roles within Mormonism and the way that it's extremely patriarchal? Like, actually, like, I think it might be harder to leave as a man because it kind of, like, reinforces, like, you were powerful, like, let me put you on a pedestal a little bit, right? So, like, did you grapple with that, or did that come later? Like, just kind of, like, what was your experience around that?
I didn't really question like my sexuality and gender until just a few years back. Definitely not in my teenage years or 20s. My brother is gay, and he was gay since he was like 12 years old. So his story is way crazier than mine. Yeah, I think he would have been much better at this than I am, right? And very quickly, the experience of women and men are vastly different. And in fact, when Vanessa was telling me about her experience as a teenager, I was just surprised because I had no idea that this was going on. And if I had known, I would have asked more questions sooner. So that said.
And what kind of answers do you think you would have gotten?
I don't know where to start. There is definitely a very, very gender difference in the church. I left for emotional reasons and cultural reasons. He left for doctrinal. And I think for a lot of women, there are more women in the church than men because it's very difficult for women to leave. If you are socialized, this is not, the church will say, go get as much education as you can. But then it also says that your role is to be a homemaker. And so culturally, this is interpreted as, from father to your education for women, get married young, have 5 kids, and the next thing you know, you are stuck. And it's very difficult for women to leave the church because if they leave, they have no support. And it is very damaging. Utah's got one of the highest rates of antidepressant use in the country. Utah's got one of the highest suicide rates in the country. And you can't point a finger and say this is the church, but there's a lot of anecdotal evidence that most of these suicides by youth are LGBTQ youth. This is just colloquially known in the Mormon communities that these suicide rates are affecting them. So yes, it's very different. Yeah, sorry. A very different experience if you are not a cis male.
We'll go with you. The back, I think you mentioned for a while.
So I have a cousin who just married into the church, and it was, at least from our perspective, and this is projecting, and so it's naive and probably arrogant and all that, but it seems to be very much that he's done it for his out of love as opposed to out of like doctrinal understanding. And I'm just wondering if either of you have thoughts on, from my perspective, like I just want to care for him, counsel him, be a cousin, and walk and like have useful conversations with him without being like, you're crazy for believing this. And just wondering if you have like, I don't know, any words on how to do that, or how to do it family member.
Helpful things for me was if someone had come and said like, hey, you're crazy, I'd have doubled down.
Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
so maybe just don't tell them they're wrong,
Yeah.
but just be like, be a friend, honestly. Like that's all it is. If they have questions, they need to feel like you are a safe place to come talk about that. Because they're about to be surrounded by a lot of people that they can't talk about this with. So generally just, be a family member.
Yeah, I think like life could be fairly normal. You could become a U.S. senator, right? Almost president as well. So you could have the semblance of a normal life, and especially I think coming in, not having grown up there, kind of resist some of the worst things that the church will try to impose on you, and culturally as well. And yeah, I would just ditto what she said. Yes, sir.
Just wondering about looking for a balance of people staying in the church due to, let's say, psychological coercion, the guilt, as you were saying, if you doubt it, then you have any doubt and be bad, versus then getting something out of the membership that's kind of struck by how you describe it, and the angst, and almost like a relationship breakup, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Your point about what is the purpose, what is the meaning after this. So to what extent would you find your meaning in life to be based on some of the teachings, like you were doing something, this was good, this is your mission, to have purpose in life, and it drew from Mormonism. Did that exist? Does that exist for people to a large extent, and without force, as opposed to just the guilt and coercion, guilt about coercion?
So that's totally tied together, the coercion and guilt with the sense of purpose that the church instills in you. So the church teaches this cookie cutter life and it's very different, right? Male and female. Male, you go on a mission when you're 19, super specific. You go to college, become a breadwinner, get married, have children, and then you serve in your local church community. In fact, part of the teachings, not doctrinally speaking, but is that as a member of the church, as a Mormon, you weren't really supposed to, your role in life is not to become like a famous scientist or do anything big in life. You're supposed to help with your church community at whatever level, and that's it, right? Like, so we're openly, I guess, discouraged to really go for our dreams, I would say. And as a female, it's a lot simpler. You just to have children and be married.
Interesting when it comes to, like, to illustrate that point, little anecdote. When we moved to Boston and went to our church community here for the first time, he got asked what he did for work, where he went to school, what he was majoring in, and I got asked who I was married to and what he did for work. Like, I probably talked to 20 people that day, not one of them asked me what I did. So this is this, even look, your identity is tied to other people, whether that be your children or your spouse.
Also, it's still the 1950s.
It's very 1950s, and there's this very, like, you are right, Shay. We walk out this mental women as Mormons, they're happy, they're bubbly, they're shiny, like, I think if you've met Mormons, that tends to be the image. And there's definitely that pressure to be, yes, kind of.
There's a lot of pressure to conform to those cultural norms and standards. So that's kind of like what we're told to do, and the guilt comes because you have to fit, obviously, but there's also a huge list of commandments and rules that you have to follow. You have to pray every morning, every night. You have to pray before each meal. You have to study the scriptures, Bible, Book of Mormon daily with your family as well. You have to attend church every Sunday, a few hours. You have to go to all these meetings throughout the week. And on top of that, you also have duties, the callings, and so you have like roles, like maybe you're leading or you're a teacher.
I think they try to keep you so busy you don't question.
Yeah, and it's really like impossible to really do it all. And so I was the whole time, like the whole life, I was ridden with feelings of guilt. I was not doing enough. I was not good enough.
If that provides purpose.
It provides.
Yeah, because the purpose is to, if you just do a little bit more and a little bit more, then you'll get the reassurance that you need. So I think, yeah, guilt is having a purpose for a lot of people, and I'm not going to say it's not that for everybody. There's a lot of people very comfortable and happy in the church. I can't give you any kind of percentage as to what it is. I know that the younger generation is very disenfranchised right now, especially with recent policies that have come out. I think the older generation is generally more comfortable. But yeah, I think guilt is tied into purpose and what a lot of people say.
I would say that maybe my case is not most typical, maybe an extreme version, because like my understanding and take on religion was very fundamental. Like, this is the law, I'm gonna do it, right? It's either true or it's not. If it's not, I'm gonna do it. If it is, I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna go full on, baptize everyone and heal the sick, kind of thing. But a lot of people don't have that perspective, and I would say that growing up in also in a very fundamental religion country where Catholicism and evangelicalism are 90% of the religions, and in East Texas, coming to Boston and learning about liberal Christianity, it just blew my mind. Like, I just don't know what to make of it. It just
like universal, yeah,
Unitarianism.
yeah, that was just mind blowing.
Like, you could just do whatever you like.
You could just disagree with like the main like organizing branch of your religion. That's not a Mormon thing at all.
Yeah.
So you say you are discouraged from achieving your dreams. And I certainly never asked him point blank, but from everything I've seen about the drama, he's pretty religious and pretty Mormon.
Yes.
I mean, he spent decades fighting in courts to build a one steeple on top of the Mormon church in Belmont. Like decades. So he certainly was not discouraged from achieving his dreams, right?
Sorry. Go.
I think it's less about discouraging goal and more just that the emphasis is not
Can you
your
speak out just a little bit?
It's not so much that you're discouraged if you're male, it's more that it's not the primary focus. Your primary focus is your family and your ward calling. So if Mitt Romney had become president, that's great. But his first role would be if he was bishop and to report to church leaders or to his congregation. Like, there's a sense that the church is the most important thing. And the rest is nice and it's great, but it should come secondary to church obligations.
So I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you basically saying he has overcome that need to be,
I mean,
under the bishop versus under the CEO of Bain.
I mean, everybody's different and everybody internalizes different cultural teachings differently or doctrinal teachings differently. So yes, I mean, obviously people can be very successful in the church, and there are quite a few very successful people in the church. It's just generally thought of as very nice and that's great and wonderful, and we want you to go and do well, but it's not as important. So if it comes down to going to church on Sunday or, you know, picking up an extra shift or a court case or whatever, your job is to be in church on Sunday.
The exception might, as far as being discouraged, might be business and making money. Because then obviously you can donate more and you can dedicate your life to full time to the church.
And tithing's a big one because like even our family members who are Mormon, if they were not current tithing payers, they couldn't go.
If they're not current what?
Tithing payers, they can't go to the temple. So you pay 10% of your income to the church, and you have a yearly meeting with your bishop to see if you have paid that 10%, and you get a temple recommend card, and you have to have that temple recommend card to go to the temple. So like when we got married, his brother is Mormon, but his brother, being gay, did not have a temple recommend card because he was
under disciplinary action.
yeah, he was under disciplinary action to our temple ceremony.
When my brother was married, none of us could go to his ceremony. That was really painful. But, you know, we tried to laugh about it, you know.
So you're not allowed to have people of other faiths to come into your wedding?
No, not in the temple.
Maybe you want to explain the difference between the temple and the church.
Can I pause for a moment? So Hannah, I don't know how we are with time. It's already 8:36. So I think if people want to take off, they can. I think they're totally welcome too. But I'm definitely happy to answer more questions.
So, yeah, I mean, does everyone want to stay a bit longer, or I mean, we started a bit late, so maybe another 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, let's say.
Yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy to stay.
Is 10
I'm
minutes?
just saying if people want to. step out, so I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for coming.
Okay.
Sure.
So temple, I mean, there's normal churches, anybody can walk into them. That's where you have your Sunday lessons, you know, your weekday activities for the kids, whatever. Temples are different, they're very, very sacred. And that's where special like ceremonies and ordinances and covenants are made. You wear special clothing. You've got to be not just Mormon, but like super active Mormon to go in. And there's, like I said, interviews to determine your worthiness to go in there. And yes, you do have to be Mormon and you have to be temple, like caught up on your tithing. You have to be like endowed, so you have to have gone through certain ceremonies first. And you know the magic Mormon underwear? Have you heard of that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in order to go in, you have to have done the ceremony.
But can you tell us what's magic about?
Nothing other than being magically uncomfortable.
Symbols. Yeah.
Yeah. So it has special symbols. You actually have to buy it from the church. I think it's a racketeering scheme. That's a different argument. But they're supposed to be reminders of modesty and of like your promises to God to be righteous and a bunch of other hoopla. But anyways, the first time I went to the temple was again like the day before our wedding, and I was sitting there in like these special robes with a veil over my face and like special aprons, like hand to the square. And I remember freaking out, and I went white. And my mom was like, "Are you okay?" Because she was my guide through the temple. And I just remember the thought flashed in my head in big bold letters, like I'm in a cult. Held it together just long enough to get out of the temple to the ceremony, broke down in the courtyard with him, like, So, yeah, the temple is very, very different than your normal Sunday experience. A little more weird.
It's like way more weird.
How do you know if it's learn if it's an underground? How do you know if you learn if it's an underground?
People see it sometimes, like if your sleeve comes up, or you can see the outline of it. Like if you ever see like a white tank top poking out of clothing on Mormon, that's probably their garments.
It's not a small garment.
No, so it's like knee length on women, cap sleeves, basically from here down to here, covered.
So old school swimming outfit, basically?
Yeah. And you wear it close to the skin, so beneath your bra, like under your clothing, you take it off the shower, sleep and sex, basically. It's, other than that, it's on.
Yes, sir.
I just got conflict between, you don't want to be too antagonistic about people, but doesn't it also just sound so repulsive?
To be fair, I'm a little bitter still, I'm a little more bitter than he is, so if I'm coffee, I can sound a little more antagonistic.
I've been out for a while, still.
There's real repression of people's ability to live full lives, it seems, you know?
Can I answer that?
Yes,
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. There's an awful lot of my life where I had, but I haven't been able to live it. I can understand logically and reasonably that none of this makes sense, that none of it was true. But I still find myself talking to an imaginary friend. I still find myself understanding that I'm filling a purpose, and it might not be the purpose that I could have done, but it's good enough because it serves other people, and it helps my community, and that was the role that I was taught to live. So while, yes, I could have had that ambition to be the doctor that I wanted to be, I'm a baker, I'm a good baker. But baking fit the mold better. You know, I had my patriarchal blessing, and this is the thing, patriarchal blessing. As soon as we are 20-ish, something like that, as adults, you go to your patriarch, who then tells you your lot in life, essentially, gives you this tarot reading, this soothsayer explanation of what your purpose should be. So and he told you to be the baker? He told me to be a teacher. I hate children. But I would do great work ones afterward who have this patriarchal feeling that if you cannot bear children or children by their own blood, that you're not a valuable person, much less a valuable woman. I'm not sure if I will ever reconcile some of those things.
Yeah, there's
Because it is a
definitely.
psychological, like it's the depression that I watched my mother go through for all of my life as a convert to the church, knowing that she wasn't living up to the Mormon values. Knowing that I wasn't living up to them, but making all of these agreements throughout my life to make it work, breaking my promises, and yet making deals with this God that it would be okay because we could somehow work it out. I'm not sure I'll ever get over some of those.
Can I address this? I really appreciate, the hearing both your perspectives and your perspective as a cisgendered male who's been able to explore sexuality outside of the church, but that's another thing. But I relate so much to her story. It's scary to the point that my mother didn't leave her room for 8 years. Literally, and I had to raise my 5 siblings. Depression is pervasive for women in the church. I mean, they just expect them to be perfect. And, if you have one child after another, I mean, come on, 6 kids. It was insane. But, I had somewhere I was going with this. Oh, Mitt Romney. Cars, I call it he reminds me, even though I come from Utah, he is the consummate Mormon man. So I never fit in either, can you tell? He kind of looks like, even though he's, Mr. Politician and stuff, I know Gal, weird, about other parts of his family that live in Mexico that are polygamous. There's weird stuff going on there. So he just looks like a car salesman to me. So I always kind of call the Mormon church like the carsman sales version of the Handmaid's Tale. Because it feels like that for women. Like, I raised my hand when I was a kid, and I was a kid that I was a nerd, whatever. I'm at MIT. I was an enemy down the street. But, I used to sneak out and read books and, at school. I couldn't stay in school. And I was told, that I was reading too much by my bishop all the time. I was reading too much. Oh, and then I asked, my last thing is, I was asked I asked as a little kid, I was about 7 or 8, and I've been reading too many biographies of great women in history. Danger sign. And I raised my hand and I said, how come women can't be prophets? I thought it was a good question. What the hell? I was a little kid. I thought, all these great women are doing great things. I don't understand why this is what we do.
We wouldn't be wrong, but that's your only option.
Yeah. And the woman said, you're gonna grow up and have babies. I'm like, wow.
So, you asked about resentment, for me at least, so I got disowned, right? And I went to therapy, but I did go to therapy for getting disowned. I went to therapy to feel okay about going back to school, to going back to school. It was harder for me to start college than it was getting disowned because of all the guilt I felt about spending money on that education.
What do you do today? I just graduated in December, actually. So
What do you do?
I think we're about to close. Can we just
So
close?
some final announcement. Oh, okay. Yeah, go ahead.
We just like one last question. Final announcements.
Okay, yeah.
You can catch me later too.
I got one.
Yes.
So the Mormon Church's history of like racism in the 60s and 70s and earlier on doesn't really reconcile in my mind with like a large presence in Latin America. Like, how much of that did you see growing up? I know a lot of it was before your time, but like, did you experience any of that racism growing up in the Mormon Church?
Oh wow, that's a deep topic.
Yeah.
So let me do some quick background. So until the 1960s or 70s, black men were not allowed to receive the priesthood. I was, like all Mormon men, ordained. So I was ordained a priest and then ordained an elder. Black men were not allowed to be ordained until they receive a revelation from God.
How does this revelation?
What race are you?
Latino, so Latinos don't count. It's just
Latinos don't count as black?
no, they don't count. Well, no, that's the question. I don't know what they would do, but or how they would determine whether you're black or not. I don't know. But that changed. They received a revelation. It became policy in the 1960s or 70s, I remember. So that's no longer the case. They did, however, but there's things like that. They're obviously racist, and then they're still persistent. So until very recently, until maybe 10 years ago, if you were an illegal immigrant in the United States, or non-status, let's call it that, you could not get baptized.
Whoa.
And
Because you don't follow the laws of the
so that has changed. Things like that. There are other things like
Woman forgiveness is very conditional.
there was actually a very recent policy in 2015 or 2016 where if you were a child of a gay couple, you could not get baptized. Am I right?
You had to wait until you were 18 and then renounce your current lifestyle. And you have to understand what a big part of their life baptism is for a Mormon child, and then being able to go on various trips and different things that you have to be baptized in order to go on. Like, it's very exclusionary for those children. Very controversial.
Yeah, culturally, I didn't experience like widespread like racism. I don't think it's any different than what normally happens. But institutionally, you have those things.
It's kind of worth noting, and you're right, this is a huge topic, but like, the Book of Mormon takes place in the Americas. So, like, the history there, in terms of like the Mormon story of what history is very, very different depending on which group so I think their presence in Latin America has a lot to do with the Book of Mormon kind of speaking to that population in a different way than other people.
And the Book of Mormon justifies its racism by saying they were Lamanites, which are like the bad guys in the book. So if you are dark skinned, you're descended from those bad guys and very much sins of the father kind of thing.
But you can be converted into Mormonism as a person of color because you have changed your status with God. So being born as that culture isn't acceptable. But
And on that note,
Thank you all.
Also, please a round of applause for Vanessa. And also for all of you who answered each other's questions. I just want to give a few closing notes. Just a shout out to Bryce and Naked Mormonism podcast. They were the featurette on that. Did anyone hear that? Okay, well, definitely listen to this podcast. It's one of the best, ex-Mormon podcasts out there. He does a really good job of, talking about the Mormon history, the hitherto, not hitherto, but like the hidden Mormon history that many people don't know about. It's great, even if you're not a Mormon, never been a Mormon. It's a great podcast. and a couple of other podcasts you might want to check out. I put a poster up there with the names of these podcasts, so yeah, check these out as well. Kara is an ex-Mormon, Frank and Dana ex-Mormons, and that and the Book of Mormon podcast. My Book of Mormon podcast is a reading of the Book of Mormon in a sort of irreverent way. We have a couple of upcoming events. So we have Max Tang, who will be speaking about her journey out of evangelical Christianity. This was part of our Out and Out series. We hope you can join us for this as well. It's in the same room, 7 p.m. on Thursday, April 4th. It's going to be a really good one. And last event of the semester is we're going to have another Out and Out event. This is a Muslimish conference. It's basically like a group of questioning Muslims, ex-Muslims, and they're talking about, and as a group, like about bringing pluralism and freedom of conscience and things like that to the between Muslims and ex-Muslims and questioning Muslims. So that's going to happen on Saturday, April 27th. Yeah, posters up there as well. You can check them out. Yeah, we have meetings. If you're on campus, welcome to attend our hangouts. We discuss topics, scripture, secular stuff, and yeah. So thank you, and safe driving home.